your shady garden is not a problem. It is an untapped harvest waiting to happen. Most gardeners look at a bed getting 2 to 4 hours of sunshine and write it off completely. And honestly, that is such a waste. I mean it. If you keep ignoring those shady spots, you are leaving real food on the table season after season. These are not scraggly, barely surviving plants. These are crops that actually prefer, or at the very least seriously tolerate, lower light conditions, So here are 9 proven crops ready to plant right now, plus everything you need to stop writing off every shadowy corner of your garden. The first crop is one almost every gardener already knows, but very few realise just how well it performs once the sun disappears. Spinach is genuinely built for this kind of growing environment, I mean it. It is cold tolerant, which also means it is heat intolerant, and that makes shade a natural fit. When a spinach plant gets blasted with too much direct sun and rising temperatures, it bolts fast, and the flavour turns bitter almost overnight. Tuck it into a shady bed and you remove that risk entirely. The smart move is to start seeds indoors rather than direct sowing, because germination can take close to 2 weeks, even under ideal conditions. And honestly, testing that patience in a shady plot where seeds are already slower is just not worth it. Once you have healthy seedlings, transplant in succession a new tray every 2 to 3 weeks, and you will have a continuous harvest coming out of a corner barrow most people have completely given up on. The second crop is one almost every gardener already knows, but very few realise just how well it performs once the sun disappears. And look, that is actually the whole point. Chard is, one of the easiest crops then to perennialise in a shady bed. Plant it once, walk away, and come back with shears whenever you want to harvest. Clip the outer leaves, leave the centre growth intact, and the plant just keeps producing week after week without really asking much of you. One thing worth knowing before you plant: what looks like a single chard seed is actually a compound seed. Plant 1 and 2 or 3 seedlings may come up together, so more plants for less effort. The colour range alone makes it worth growing. Aureole orange, ruby red, rainbow, white, pink. Chard brings real visual interest to a shady corner, and since it needs less watering in lower light, it is honestly one of the most low-effort crops you can possibly grow. The next one is a crop that can actually struggle in too much direct sun, which makes the shady garden, kind of the ideal place for it. Leaf lettuce is shallow-rooted, and that makes it naturally suited to the shady bed. The soil in a shadier spot stays cooler and holds moisture longer. Exactly the conditions lettuce loves. Exactly. Too much direct sun and heat are its enemies. The leaves get sensitive, the plant bolts quickly, and the harvest window closes fast. In the shade, growth slows just enough to give you more time. Choose a fast-maturing cultivar, something in that 35 to 45-day range, rather than anything pushing past 55 days, to compensate for the reduced light. Starting from transplant rather than direct sowing gives the crop a meaningful head start, and that matters even more when light levels are lower. Almost every variety of leaf lettuce does well in partial shade. Most people think of peas as a spring crop and stop right there. But the exact reason they love spring is, the same reason they belong in a shady garden. Peas love cool, stable conditions. They struggle as temperatures climb and direct sun intensifies. That is exactly why spring suits them, right? Dan, a shady bed gives you that same profile. Cooler temperatures, more stable moisture, less harsh light. That makes peas a natural fit, even as the season pushes into months that would normally write them off. Direct sow them after a short soak in water and get a trellis up early. If the tendrils have trouble climbing, and honestly this happens all the time, small garden hooks can guide them back toward the structure. Mulch on top protects the shallow roots and keeps moisture in. Peas in partial shade will genuinely thrive, and the flavour when you eat them straight from the vine, it is just something else. This next one is a crop most gardeners consider boring and totally predictable. But look, it hides more variety than almost anything else in the entire garden. Radishes are a sleeper hit of the shady garden, honestly. They can handle full sun, but intense light causes them to bolt before the root even has time to develop. In a bed, getting 2 to 4 hours of light, simply add around 15 extra days onto whatever the seed packet says for maturity, and they will still bulb up reliably. It is that simple. The variety available is staggering. Watermelon radish, black Spanish, daikon, green lobo. The options go so far beyond the small red globe most people picture when they hear the word. And if you have never pickled young radishes, roasted them, or thrown them fresh into a salad, you are genuinely missing out. Plant them in the shadiest corner and put that space to real use. This one is going to surprise most people. Almost nobody considers this a shade-tolerant vegetable at all. Potatoes will actually produce in a shady garden bed, and the key to making it work is harvesting them early. As soon as the plant flowers, start thinking about pulling those potatoes rather than waiting for them to size all the way up. New potatoes, small, tender, freshly dug, are a genuine delicacy, and in a shady spot, that is exactly the yield you are chasing. They are not going to grow into large storage-ready tubers without more sun, but the harvest is still real, still delicious, and honestly worth the space. Shade keeps the soil cooler and holds moisture longer, which the young roots appreciate. Harvest the new potatoes, replant with another crop, and keep that bed earning all season. That is the whole game right there. The next one is another counterintuitive pick. Most gardeners just assume this crop needs every single available hour of sun it can possibly get. Bush beans will produce in partial shade, and the key is placing them in whichever part of the shady bed gets the most light. If one spot gets 4 hours and another gets 2, the beans go in the 4-hour spot. Obviously. They will not yield as heavily as in full sun, but they will yield, and that is the whole point. A really smart trick is growing them in a container or vertical tower you can rotate. A half turn every morning means every side gets a fair share of the available light. Over the course of a month, each side effectively gets 15 days of full sun exposure. And that adds up in a real way. Bush beans reward the gardener who refuses to waste a single growing space. Most gardeners assume the next plant is strictly a full sun crop, and they are leaving a perfectly productive bed sitting completely empty because of it. Basil has the reputation of needing maximum sun. What more do you want from one bed? But certain varieties genuinely thrive in partial shade, and the results can be extraordinary. Perennial types like African blue basil are the best example. Cut back hard twice in a season, and they push out dense, abundant new growth every single time. African blue basil also pulls in pollinators consistently, giving the shady bed a dual function. Harvesting herbs while supporting the whole garden ecosystem at the same time. Tulsi, also known as holy basil, along with Thai basil and Greek columnar basil, all perform really well in lower light conditions too. Mix a few of these varieties in one shady corner and you get fragrance, colour and consistent harvests all growing season. I mean, what more do you want from one bed? The final crop does not just tolerate shade. Look, shade actually solves the #1 problem that drives most gardeners absolutely crazy with this plant. The most common complaint about cilantro is that it bolts, and it bolts fast. You know this if you have ever tried to grow it. The moment temperatures rise and the sun gets intense, cilantro throws up a flower stalk, the leaves turn feathery and lose all their flavour, and the harvest window slams shut before you have barely picked anything. The Shady Garden removes that problem almost entirely. I mean it. Yes, cilantro grows a little slower in lower light, but slower growth means a longer harvest window and more of those fresh aromatic leaves making it into the food you love. Choose a slow bolt cultivar to stretch the season even further. And parsley responds the same way to partial shade, making it a fantastic companion plant alongside cilantro in any low-light bed. 2 crops, 1 shady corner, consistent harvests. Here is the thing nobody tells you about shady gardens. It is not just about which crops you choose, it is about sequencing them so the bed never sits empty and is always producing something. Most gardeners plant once and wait. The ones getting real results plant on rotation. Drop your Shady Garden wins in the comments below. Share what has worked for you. And if this helped, subscribe so you do not miss the next one.